You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, Episode 50, How to Build a Long Campaign. Today we talk about building a long campaign. We discuss why it's difficult to storytell a long campaign and some of the pitfalls in it. We also cover tips on how to plan out and build a long campaign. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me in person, his best chronicles sit on his mantle, Jared.
Oh, it is true. We have this thing that I call my flagship games, and if I could get a trophy for a game, I would, this game would be on my trophy shelf. And
some people frame diplomas. Jared would frame his games.
I would. I really like if there was an if I had the liquid cash to just make trophies for games, I would. I literally would.
It's a good gift idea. I'll keep that one in mind somewhere down the line.
Red Lake would probably be right now.
I'll get you a statue of the Wendigo.
It was Red Lake was really something special to me. Like, for me now, looking back at it, it was just such a fucking.
It was fun to play in. It was actually very cleverly done.
I have to admit, for me, building the game really was very. It was like dominoes. I chose a creature and a location, and the location ended up having a lot of backstory itself. So in the game, in the Chronicle, there was a riot that I'd said was over a Wendigo.
Yeah.
In the real history of that Indian reservation, there was a massive riot over a situation.
Yeah, you really like to do a thing where you transpose real world events on top of things to kind of give history and flavor.
I really do.
And I mean, it's probably part of your, in case you didn't know, Jared was a history teacher. He's only talked about 100 times in this podcast.
All right, 101.
So you like to put nuggets of history in there.
I like to put the bump.
Yeah.
This was real, and what I like to do is welcome my players to research stuff.
And it was even better when you put that together, because not only could we take a look on Google and find the information that you'd found, but two, you got to kind of put that into and inject it into the game, part of your mystery as well.
Yeah.
Which was really fun, which really made for a bunch of different cool side stories.
It really did. It was a fantastic game. I was so happy with it. But what is our topic for today?
So today we are talking about how to build a long campaign. We have danced around it. We talked about how to do short one-shots. We talked about how to begin, how to end your game. Even talked about the epic final battle and the epilogue. These are all parts of it. But one of the things I think we brought up in how to the epic final battle and doing the epilogue is, if you're doing a week-to-week game, landing a long chronicle that's going to go on for a long time is really, really hard to do.
It's difficult.
I mean, because you got to think about that. If you're going to do a tight, compact game, and you're going to develop a game, your dwarf game, how long did that take you to develop?
Probably in total, I would say about a month, a good solid month of development. And I mean, I was working hard at it.
So we played that week to week. It went on for about 7 weeks. So you think about that 1 month for 7 weeks. That means that your time invested equaled about a month and a half of effort on the other end of it.
Yep.
And when you put that into context for a week-to-week game running a chronicle, you don't have the luxury of producing a year to get, a year and a half, or 2 years to get 3 years.
Yeah, and you don't have that. You really can't develop 2 years worth of content because you got a year sitting, unless you have, a storyteller who's going to be telling a game for, the course of a year. And then if you are a second storyteller in that group, I know there's a lot of people out there that they're like, okay, I get my nice relaxing break from storytelling because somebody else is going to be storytelling for a great deal of time. I go ahead and take a little time to relax your creative juices. I did that just last week. We just finished up my Dwarven campaign, and I took about a week to relax my creative juices. But I went right back to it. I'm already in development, so I guess for our listeners, this is kind of fun. You get to hear about a development right in the middle of me actually building a game from scratch. Can't say too much because Aaron's going to be.
I'm going to be playing in that game. If Jared gives away any of his secrets, it's going to be hard.
Oh no, I'm not gonna do that. So I mean, but you can't really do that for a long campaign because, what I'm saying is during that time. Sorry, brain malfunction right there. Hopefully you've all been listening to this podcast long enough to be like, well, how's Aaron? His brain misfired again. So back to the point of during that time, don't waste that time. Time is so valuable to the whole gaming process. You can't waste it. Now, I'm not saying for storytellers to stress yourselves out. Like, oh my God, you gotta come up with another game. You can't be doing that to yourself. If you're overstressing yourself, you need to discuss with your party, your group, your crew, whatever you call your team, that, hey, I need somebody else to step in for a little bit to give me a little time. But just like any good art, and that's what storytelling is. It's very much an art. When people, as I've said in many podcasts, I let my freak flag fly. I am like totally open with coworkers, friends, family about my gaming. And if they're like, well, what is that? I go into detail. I tell them I do dwarven voices. Good day, sir. And I let them think that I'm fucking weird. I don't care. I'm 35. I've ceased to give fucks. As long as they continue to think that I'm good enough to promote.
Promote and pay me.
As long as they want to promote and pay me, I'm cool. I'm cool with what they're like. Well, Jared's a really weird guy, but he gets the job done. As long as they're like, okay, that's cool. I don't. But like any good art, it's time spent. So you're most likely not gonna have that amount of time. You're not gonna have that year of another storyteller. But the first thing that I do recommend is making sure that you have some time. If your goal is that long campaign, you need some time. Okay, now what does that mean? For me, my best advice is, let's say that you are one of many storytellers in your group. That's an easy, say, hey, Aaron, I need you to run a story, for a little bit while I create this chronicle that I really want to tell. It's a story I want to tell. And again, we always come back to the idea of cooperation and collaboration and communication with your group. And that's one of the things about this podcast. We want you to share it with your players so they get an idea of the magic to an extent, because you're human. There's nothing wrong with looking at your group and saying, guys, I need time because I want to tell this story. I want to tell this magical story for you, but I need time to build it. And I don't want us to lose our week to week, because the week to week is about getting together with friends and sharing that time together. Let one friend take over. So if you've got a group of storytellers, let one friend take over for a few months. Let them tell the story that they wanted to tell for a long time. The other possibility is that you are part of a group that has no other storytellers. So, one, and this is the
One,
one that
get them to listen to this podcast. Maybe they'll become a storyteller.
there we go. That was actually my point.
2, let's say that your players are still really shy. They got to listen to 50 some odd episodes to figure it all out.
What are we at? 50?
I think this is number 50 right here.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so they got to listen to a bunch of episodes to figure it all out. We will have a recap episode to kind of give you the highlights on which ones you should give them to really listen to. But you should listen to the entire discography because it's really good.
Discography. That's an awesome term.
You should start with these ones here. But let's say that your player isn't gonna be ready to tell a story next week, and even if they're gonna tell a romp or a brouhaha, and there's a lot of easy ways that you can tell pretty easy one-shot stories.
Ninjas from the ceiling.
It's one of our favorites. But let's say your player just doesn't want to do it. Okay, you've got players who are just super reluctant at this point again, and they're listening to the podcast now. They're trying to get into it. It's kind of going to be a crapshoot for you to kind of get it out. You can do a bunch of one-shots.
There we go. You can do a bunch of one-shots.
And to give yourself time to prepare a real game, okay? The other thing that you can do, and I wouldn't recommend this one because this is sort of how most of Jared's kind of came about, is Jared would be given about a week to prep. Okay?
That's the truth.
And we would make characters that night, and then we would start the game. And but back then Jared had more free time.
I was in school.
In school, you had more time to do stuff and devote more effort towards running a story. And the problem is that most of those stories failed. They stopped after one night. It was just a lot of them never materialized into anything. But every now and then we would have a really good night, which would be more or less where we'd had a one-shot game that night. And that one-shot game was enough to inspire players to want to know more. And that's what got Jared's gears grinding. And then it was just basically Jared trying to stay a week ahead of us.
Yeah, and essentially it was a week-to-week thing. Like my maintenance session was aiming for just staying 1 week ahead of the team. So, going along with what Aaron said, essentially what you're going to do is bunt. To use baseball terms that Aaron and I both don't really know, but Aaron probably knows it better than I do. I do enjoy watching a good baseball game, though. I found out I really do enjoy it because I can tippity type all I want, and they will always replay the big hits. So
yeah, you don't need to pay very much attention to it.
No, you don't, because you'll just hear the crowd go wild, and you look up and they'll rewind it to the home run.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it was great. Go Sox, So one of the things that I would recommend is kind of that bunt. Develop a story idea, get it going, and focus more on player-driven story. Now, if you have players that are like, nope, we like the nice linear story, we don't really craft our own ideas, it's a little harder, but aim for a more simplistic campaign. Try not to delve into the high levels of development, because what you're doing is you're creating time. And be honest and open with your players. Let them know, like, guys, this game is meant for us to get together and have fun, for a few weeks while I really develop my masterpiece. So if it's a little on the not so great story side, bear with me, because it's, again, gaming is about getting together with your friends and having a great time and having fun. So aim for that fun. Just aim for the fun. If your team likes good old fashioned shoot 'em ups, or for D&D, I guess stab 'em ups. For futuristic, I don't know, lightsaber 'em ups.
The tavern fight, the cantina fight, the bar fight. I mean,
aim for those. Every week we've got some sort of. For me personally, if your team is very combat geared, I love bounty hunting games. Like they're just easy. It's where's this person? Who's he hiding behind? Make 2 levels of people he's hiding behind, and let the players go off on their own. Bounty hunting is great for week to week stories because your players always get the treasure, and you can. It's very simple to put together. Think simple. But getting back to the main topic, so we've devised for you how to make some time for yourself to build it. So step 1, you've got a story in mind. Okay, I want to tell a story where the players defeat a powerful necromancer. The story's going to revolve around the undead. Okay, we've now established our kind of theme is going to be like the undead and fighting the undead. The mood kind of goes along with the theme, fortunately for this one. You could do action adventure with the undead. I mean, look at some zombie movies that are more action-oriented compared to zombie movies that are more scary-oriented. There's different
Are you speaking about this being the broad theme?
Yeah, the broad theme of
So
I want to make it scary. I want to make it action adventure.
Your epic final battle is going to be you fighting the necromancer in his necromantic lair.
Necromantic lair or necropolis. Necropolis works. If he's got a dead city underground, that's awesome.
That's true. Yeah, but again, so eventually the players have to get there. But the Jared's right. The game is probably going to be a little bit more action oriented, the one that we're designing here. But that doesn't mean that
it can't be a horror campaign.
It doesn't mean that it can't be horror. It can't have social aspects to it. There could be a lot to it because you could have the human cult followers, and you need to figure out who those people are to eventually work your way into the depths of the necrotic city. There's things that you can do in the length of the campaign because you're not trying to get them there within 5 months. You're trying to get them there within like 2 years.
Yep, and one of the fortunate thing is that one of the things that I want you to look at is, let's say that you have a week-to-week campaign. Okay, if I want a 2-year campaign, you are aiming for 104 sessions. That's the content area. It's always good to identify your scope, because remember, we talked a lot about conflict every session or every 2 sessions. So you're planning out 52 fights. There has to be 52 combats, roundabouts. I know this sounds very formulaic, but take my word for it. This is 20 plus years of gaming, much of it. I mean, Aaron and I really only started to explore episodic gaming and collaborative storytelling in the last year or two.
And again, your conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a combat. It can be something where like you're fleeing from something.
So you're planning around 52 conflicts. Yes, that's a better term.
52 conflicts, 52 action-packed kind of tight encounters where the players are going to be dealing with some serious problem. Is it that they're trapped in a cell like Indiana Jones and the ceiling's falling with the spikes?
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do to build conflict, and it just needs to happen about 52 times.
I mean, this is the thing. We're helping you guide a 2-year long campaign. You may be like, holy crap, that's a lot. If you're looking at this and getting overwhelmed, first, calm down. 2, analyze. Is this something that you want to do, that your players want to do? If you're like 52s combats in 104 sessions, I'm out of my mind. I'm out of my depth. Reduce your scope.
Best plan here, though, is so the thing with the long campaign is when you think about how long you want it to be, you always have to realize that you don't need to know what's going to happen during game session 72, day 1.
No,
okay?
There's going to be a lot of blank boxes.
Yes. It's going to be like, these are the high points, the things I need to hit to get to the point, to the final point. A lot of the middle stuff is fancy dancing.
It is.
It is truly fancy dancing. This will, when you do the long campaign, this is what really stretches you from a planned GM to a very improvised GM, because you have planned things, you've kind of planned encounters. I'm going to get him with the rolling ball in the Temple of Doom. Okay. But you want that to be there eventually. you can get them that in almost any dungeon.
Yeah.
Okay. What you've got to do is you got to find ways to put them into the dungeons and get them moving through it. And again, dungeons are a great way to elongate time. Okay, in Dungeons and Dragons, it's a serious way to elongate time. I'm dealing with it right now in my 5e game, and some of the dungeons take they're small maps, and they take like 3 sessions to finish.
Just because of the session, just because of the traps,
just because of the speed and like the way that you approach things, and then you end up in a bunch of encounters. Again, there are ways that you can fill voids. Now, if you want to have meaningful filled voids, that's a different situation, and that's what we're talking about with the 52 encounters. Those should be meaningful filled voids, meaning conflict that you are purposely putting in there for the players to be challenged by, not just like a random encounter or something.
Well, I'm okay with, as part of your 52, let's say, we're working with our 2-year long campaign. 52 is at least the bare minimum of conflicts you need to have. Because that's one every other week. That's a good conflict, one every other week. One of them could be a good bar fight if the bar is going to be a central thing. You don't want to fill up your map, because I'm gonna take everyone behind the curtain of 20 plus years of gaming, and Aaron is about to be shocked, because I did this for the last really long campaign that I think we did was Shattered Sphere. Yeah. What I did was I printed out a set of a calendar. So feel free to use this. What I would recommend now, after doing that, is print out a table. And in that table, have I don't like printing out things. I do everything digitally, but, if you're more a pen and paper person, God bless, you can print it out. You can keep it digital. What I'm going to literally do is mark all those boxes 1 through 104. 1 through 104. Those are my sessions. And in those boxes, I'm going to fill in information that has to happen on that session number. Now, the great thing is what I do, the first thing that I'm going to do is create that. And it's kind of my calendar of events. Okay? It's a short way of giving yourself a reminder of where you want to go, how many sessions you have to do it, and what you need to accomplish week to week. So, after I've got that calendar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my gathering, okay? Because that's the most important. That's what's coming up soon, right?
It is the most important. Go back to episode 1. We talked about it again and again and again. All good long chronicles I've been part of have had amazing gatherings.
So that's what you're going to first work at. So you're going to print up that calendar, and then you're going to create your first session. You're going to do your KYP. You're going to say, okay, how am I going to get my players together, and really look at what's going to bring them together? How can I do it holistically? What kind of players am I going to have or allow in the story? So, I only want warriors, or I only want religious people if we're going with the undead theme. It's going to be a group of clerics and paladins of different faiths, whatever god in D&D that they follow.
And don't feel like this is cheating your players. This is
not.
Session Zero stuff right here. Should never feel like, well, I want to let my players play anything they want to do, because it will screw up your long campaign. It'll screw up most of your games. It'll definitely screw up your long game.
I held that belief for such a long time. I got to let my players play whatever they want, and I will adapt to the situation. It wasn't until we started doing, till we got later in storytelling that I realized that is just a recipe for disaster. Saying, because you're going to get the player who's like, I want to play the lumberjack. Yeah, I'm bringing it back to a previous
lumberjack. Or you're going to get the player who's going to be like, I want to play this super evil character, and everyone else this pious good character.
Yeah, and what it's going to do is really gum up the works and gum up the story. You need to set limitations, because any good story has to flow thematically. You need to have characters or that match that theme. Just as Aaron said, you got a group full of paladins and clerics, And what happens? Somebody's like, well, I want to play a evil barbarian who just likes raiding things. Suddenly, what happens is during your spotlight moments, it grows very hard and very tedious to welcome that player into the light, because you're designing the spotlight moment for the majority of your players. So, I have all these undead encounters. I have these for a reason. And then you've got this barbarian out there who's evil, so you need to set those limitations. You need to be a little, you need to be a little firm in those. Like, guys, no evil characters, no diabolical.
Again, it's an expectation for what you're trying to set up for your campaign. So again, you do this for any other story that you end up doing. The only story that you can really kind of get away with whatever the hell you want to get away with is the one-shot game. Okay? Because just about anything works in the one-shot game.
In the one-shot game, I don't care
I don't care what you play, because I don't care. I'm not building a story around what your characters are going to do and how we galvanize you as a unit. But in order to galvanize a group, you can't galvanize this necrotic sorcerer and and this pious paladin and
it's one of the things that I would recommend for you if you have that player that always wants to play the offbeat, and I always want to play the whatever the group is, I want to play the opposite. One, talk to them about the motivation of that. Why is it? Or think on the motivation. Why do they want to play the character that's always opposite? But two, if you're planning this long campaign and let's say this is a serious request. I want to play in your campaign about the undead, somebody evil in our group. It's a character that they are dying to play. And you, being a good storyteller, leveling up your gaming, you've set those firm limitations. And instead of just being like, okay, you can play the evil sorcerer, talk to them about, in the beginning, if this is something you want to explore on a serious level. As a player, I have never played a character that was evil. One, let's talk about playing the transformation.
Yeah, there can be growth to
character
this character
growth.
Yeah.
Two, understand in the end, I'm probably going to have you clipped. You are an evil person amongst a group of paladins. I will respect your death. I will make sure it is cool. I will give it an opportune time. But at one point, the players might turn against you as being the evil guy because they find you sacrificing somebody in the back of the I don't know, tavern. Oh, we all slept for the night, and I was going out to pee, and I found Johnny there, slaying a wench and cutting out her still beating heart. They're going to turn on you.
There are cool things that you could do to incorporate that character, but don't feel like you need to do it. But again, if you're going to do it, make sure that whoever you are talking to it about is building a character with motivation. Again, this is one of those things where if you're going to let somebody play this in your long campaign as something that's outside the box, make sure that their motivation fits into your long campaign.
Yes, make sure that it's going to meld and mesh. And if it doesn't, be forward with them. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work for this game. Maybe next game. Maybe in 17 games we can do that. This game, that is not going to work. And here's the thing. If they're going to get upset and they're going to get childish about it, that's on them. You are trying to establish fun for the whole group, and you need to have a discussion with that player and illuminate them. Listen, I'm going for a certain theme, a certain mood for the next 2 years. And if they really want to play the villain, be a storyteller. Like, that is my best advice to anyone who's like, I want to play the villain. Cool. Step up to the bar. It's called storytelling, and you are always the villain. And you get to be the most awesome villain ever because you get to cheat legally. So,
yeah, no, I mean, so again, once you've kind of set your boundaries here, and that you can galvanize this unit together. We got to move forward, and you got to build kind of your first. You got to build like your first step effectively in the story. So Jared gave you the piece of put all your prudent points that you want over kind of the course of your game. And, you can put them into time boxes. You can make them ambiguous. You might say, I want this game to last for about 2 years, but maybe it's going to be 3. You don't know.
You don't know how it's going to work out in the end. The reason that I bring up the boxes and I don't put dates in the boxes is because these are points to hit along the way. They can be moved. So let's say in session 1, I wanted them to find a key. And this key will literally open up the door to the necropolis 2 years later. Okay? I want it to be that freaking cool. They're like, oh my God, we found that key in the first freaking session. You're a genius. So you write in the first box, key to necropolis, have to find. And so when you're developing that first session, you know that, okay, in session 1, they have to find the key to the necropolis. I just have to hit that point. And then in session 1, I also write, bartender or bar fight to galvanize group together. I now have 2 points for session 1. I know they need to find a key, and I know they need to get into a bar fight because I need a little conflict to galvanize them together. I do not recommend the bar fight to galvanize people together unless that's a key point. For a group of clerics, look at your group composition and what will galvanize that team together. What will make them fit. Go back to The Gathering again. That is such a key episode to listen to.
Again, the clerics and paladins. There's a lot of different ways that you could do it. You could have a town that has some hinky dinky hijinks going on. You could have a zombie infestation. There's things. It's the call to adventure.
It is.
It's the you aren't forcing any of your players to do it, but all of your players have heard of it. And so when they end up in the situation together, all meeting each other at that point, we all know that we're pious people. We all know that we are of the side of good. We are now fighting together because we are common in our goal against defeating this town of undead.
Yeah, and that's a good gathering for this group. That's a great gathering.
They were not all given. They weren't decreed by the king. You go here, you do this. No, they all heard about it. Somebody heard about it in a rumor from a bartender. Somebody heard about it from their priest. Somebody heard about there's a bunch of different ways. You can all give them different reasons to have gotten there. But when they all end up there, that's how you do it.
And look, it seems very holistic. And the only time that they really have to take the leap of faith is we arrived around the same time. That's the only leap of faith for them all coming together in that point. Aaron just came up with that off the fly. And really the only leap of faith is, we all arrived on the same date.
Yeah, we're gonna rehash the Gathering episode in the future because the first one had such a poor recording on it.
We're gonna go over that again.
We're gonna go over it again because I want it to have a better recording, and then 2 because we keep talking about it, and I feel it's just time to kind of rehash it. But this is kind of the point of it: any gathering has a leap of faith.
Every gathering has every game has a leap.
Every game has a leap of faith.
This is your first one. It is. It's really how big it is.
You're trying to minimize the leap of faith to suspend your disbelief.
You really are. The question is how large is the leap of faith? For everyone to be arriving at the same day, that's not a very big leap of faith. Serendipitous events occur all the time. It's a question of like you all arrive at the same date at the same time at the same hour. Okay, that's a little peculiar. See how the peculiarness level goes up. One way to kind of gauge that this is my favorite part. Everyone thinks that everyone has to arrive at the same time, the same place, and whatever. The great thing is let's say that town full of zombies is surrounded by a city wall, right? That's 50 feet high. This was a mighty town at one time before it was overrun by the undead. There's no freaking way in. Let's say the doors are locked, sealed, and barred because the people have done that. So now we got to cut through all the locks, cut through all the barring to get through there, or find a way to climb over the freaking top. Oh, we don't have rope, so we got to put together a rope or whatever. We got to tie ropes together. What this does is it decreases the peculiarness because suddenly the first person who arrived was like, Well, I didn't bring a ladder. How am I going to get over the top?
But your next person who arrives might have the ladder.
Might have a ladder. Might have some rope. Oh, you also came here to defeat the undead? I heard what happened in this town, and I came to defeat the undead. Can we tie our ropes together? Oh, it's still not that long. So let's try picking the lock. Okay, that's an hour. And, 2 people show up at the same time. Okay, well, we're starting to get a band together. It seems like a serendipitous event, and that peculiarness level is coming down. So always look at your leap of faith meter, and it's going to go up and down with what you put on certain stuff. So one of the things that I want to bring up, and this is kind of the meat and potatoes of doing a long chronicle week to week. And it's going to be very similar to maintenance, but also very different. The first thing that I want you to look at, sorry, my cat she's starved for love and attention.
So Jared's getting distracted.
I'm getting distracted by this cat. So she's a good cat. What you want to do, so take your boxes. You're adding in your plot points, and then you're developing based off the plot points you want to hit for that session. So session 1, I've got my key and my meet at the city. Zombie fight. Okay. Session 2, I want that zombie clearing of the zombie town to move into session 2. And in session 2, I do want them to find no clues. I just want them a good old-fashioned zombie clearing, kind of like a dungeon crawl, finding treasure. But in session 3, I want them to still be clearing the town, and I want them to find the key to the necropolis, or I want them to find the Book of Arimathea.
You might find some other artifacts, things that give you clues to drive forward your story.
Right, and the book could be helpful in session 27. It could be helpful in session 104. They're like, oh my god, we got the Book of Arimathea in session 3, and it contains the spell. So one of the things that you want to do is you're building. Now, most of you have heard me talk about backwards design methodology. So I work from the butt, and I work my way up. I don't know why I use the word butt. I work from the end, move my way up.
Butt and move your way up.
I'm a married man. I'm allowed to think about these things. Okay.
Jared is literally putting human anatomy in front of us and a standing human. Butt and work your way up.
Butt and work your way on up. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so you work your way from the end, and I move forward. That's backwards design methodology. In creating a long campaign, you're going to work a little bit of backwards design methodology, but you're going to also focus on your forward, because your backwards is 2 years down the road. So it's actually the second priority. Your first priority is what's right in front of your players. So what I would do in this situation, I'm sitting down, I'm developing. I've got my session 1, and we just discussed session 2 and 3. This is 3 weeks worth of material. I'm going to work on session 1 first, session 2, session 3. I'm going to build those out first. That's probably going to run me 3 weeks worth of materials. It might take me a week or 2. Heck, if things go poorly, it might take me 3 weeks to develop. Now, remember, you're making time. We're making time, so we're running our other story at the moment. We're just doing our little bunt. Maybe somebody else's storytelling, because 3 weeks startup time is not that bad. To say, like, I'm going to develop a 2-year campaign over the course of 3 weeks.
Yeah, don't think you need like 6 months to develop the 2-year campaign. I guarantee you that with the long campaign, a little bit less is more. Okay, mm-hmm. Because you're designing compact. I mean, you can design a compact session, like Jared said, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Maybe you're going to build that first kind of real encounter, how the players get going on the quest or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then after that, Jared's right. It's you've bought yourself time to build in front of that.
And that's what you're doing. So the thing is when I do with backwards design methodology. So I'm also gonna make that last session, I'm gonna keep it in my brain what I want. And when I make that first session, because trust me, this is gonna level up your gaming. You give them the key to the city of the undead in session 1, 2, or 3. They are going to think you're a freaking wizard and predicted this 2 years down the line. They are going to think, or the end, like, let's say they sell that key at session 52 and an NPC somehow brings it back to them at 75. NPC's like, by the way, I saw you sold this because you guys didn't have any money. Here's your key back. I bought it for you. I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks. Well, like, you guys had that key for, like, I don't know, 6 months. Like, I figured it was important. Or a divine spirit gives it back to them. They're going to be like, okay, that was weird. And then 25 more sessions later, they're like, holy crap, we did find that key. The key has been with us on the journey the whole freaking time. So, they will think you are a bloody sorcerer. They will like, when did you do the tarot reading? When did you break out your crystal ball? Because we would like to know. But if you're not going for that level of wizardry, don't worry. I like to go for that level of wizardry. I'm going to encourage you to. I'm going to encourage you to take this idea and steal it and run off with it.
It has more.
I'm looking at you, Nevada.
It has more oomph when it hits someone that you've set something up from so early to later, and especially like, so again, this is the thing. KYP, know your players. If you have one player where if you gave them a really interesting looking key, they would keep that key and ask everybody about it.
Make
it interesting.
Make it have a skull on it.
Yeah, make it like have a skull on it. And when you hold it, you can feel the call of the undead. Like it's eerie. Like, you know, the touch to it. It would be something. It would be a talking point. It'd be something to always drive your game forward, because you know that person will ask everybody
about that key.
So,
you know, when you're developing your story along the line, this person has some information. Episode 25. Because I know I want to do this town around this time, somewhere around there. After the first city, but before the second. So, when you are developing, keep your end in mind. Things that you want, plot points you want to lay. So, when you get to about 4 sessions ahead of your players. So, let's say the players have done sessions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, you've already planned 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you've actually got some breathing room. And you're like, holy crap, I've got a month worth of content already done. I've got 4 weeks with my players. You're going to maintain your maintenance. So you're going to work on number 9 now. So you're going to work on number 9. But you're also going to work on episode 104, 103, 102. You're going to do it side by side. And all you're doing, you're not developing the story. You're not throwing battle maps down yet. Or maybe you are. Let you decide on that. Because if you want to, like, I want to create the final game all the way at session number 9. I'm building session 9, making sure it has battle maps, making sure it has music, blah, blah, blah. And I'm also doing 104. But what I recommend is just putting down your plot points. You know, find key, episode, you know, or you know, a mysterious tiger leads them to the city of the undead, episode 103, and build backwards. And if you ever get an idea, you're sitting on the train going to work, you're sitting in an airport, and you're just like, what I highly recommend is making sure that your notes, your whatever is accessible. Something to scribble down notes. We all have phones nowadays. Keep a folder in your phone. Every phone has a note starting off app. So keep a note there, whatever. So when you're sitting waiting for a plane, waiting for an Uber, you know, you're sitting at lunch and you took lunch early and nobody else did. And you're like, oh man, I want them to fight 3 ogres, each with 1 eye. And or one can hear, one can see, one can smell, you know?
And together they're great.
And together they're fantastic until my players figure out that one can see, one can hear, one can smell, and have to separate them to defeat them. Write that down, and you're like, okay, write that down in your notes. And when you get home, when you get to your notes, be like, okay, I want that around episode 80. I think it'll last 2 sessions. So ogre fight. What do they find in the ogre's cave? And you're already developing this session 84 down the line. And you're starting to fill up those boxes. You'll fill up boxes with random ideas. And those boxes can be changed. Just remember, as you're developing boxes, okay, there's 2 things that you have to do. 1, keep track of what session you're on. So, I don't know, turn the box number from black to red. Exit out, you know, after you've passed that session if you're doing pen and paper. Then ideas or plot points that you hit or combats that you did, cross them out or underline them, put a circle next to them, because if they didn't get the key in session 3, you know that's an open item that they need to still do. So I'm going to try to reintroduce it around session 24. Okay, I put that down. I put my, down in 24, and when they come to 24, they still got the key. Because if they hit session 24, don't forget they'll still think you're a wizard because you've got 75 sessions until the end game.
Yeah, they haven't used that key. They've been wondering what the hell it is. It's interesting. It sparkles when the moonlight hits it. I mean, like something crazy like that. And it glows in the presence of the undead. Those will be things that they keep your players around. I know we're running long here. I've got 2 points that I kind of want to make with this as well. The first one is when you're doing a long campaign, even if you start out as a story-focused game, you might find that your players develop motivation based on things that happen within your story. Use that to build yourself more time in your game as well. Okay, always incorporate their stories, because one of the things that Jared always did when we were younger, and kind of as we kind of went through, is that as your characters get more powerful and as your characters gain items and things, they'll probably want to do stuff with it. Use those motivations to drive some story in there and to give players even bigger spotlight moments within your long campaign. This is something that helps you buy you time in your campaign. If your campaign's going fast, the players have circumnavigated major plot points somehow, it's hard to say what's going to happen because it's a very long campaign, and scope in a game like this is kind of unknown. You might want to do that, and if your players suddenly get the itch to do something that is like hey, we've wanted to recruit more paladins, we want to start an army to fight the undead, like you might think that's really cool, like oh my god, they've caught on to the idea that there's this serious necromancer here, and we want to now build up the army to fight the undead for the epic final battle that's going to emerge 70 sessions later. Let them start building up that guild. Let them start doing it. Okay,
God, yes.
Give them the time to do it. And then the other point that I wanted to make in the other direction is, if your players get bored at session 70, feel free to start accelerating plans. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. The game does not have to go 2 years. If you made it to session 70, you're already at a year and a half, somewhere thereabouts.
You've already really got quite a trophy. You've
done the heavy lifting. If they're in that deep at that point, the likelihood that they want this game to end anytime soon is probably low. Mm-hmm. But just keep in mind where they are and kind of where you're going, and always be willing to push the ending back a little bit and pull the ending forward. Once your players hit max level, there is not a lot more for your players to do in terms of progression in a game. Typically with a long campaign, you're letting your characters build up that way. So you can either find some modified rules and homebrew a little bit and go above the max level, or you say, you're max level, I'm going to let you play around the sandbox a little bit, I'm going to let you enjoy that for a little bit because you earned it. You really earned it. And then I'm going to now drive you towards the end of the game.
I think that's a great point to end on. Yeah.
All right. Well, you have anything else, Jared?
No, I don't. I hope everyone hears this and uses it. If you're planning on those large campaigns, I think we gave a lot of tools for the toolbox.
Yes. Hopefully you got a lot of tools for the toolbox. If you have any tools that you like for a large campaign, or you want to give us any comments or feedback on the large campaign, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. See, Jared's not the only one who can have a brain fart here and there. Or follow us on facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. We'll respond to you in both mediums anyway. Also, please share it with your players. Again, this is a good thing to share with them if you want them to get into the storytelling realm, to give you a little bit of time to build up this long game. Or your other gaming group or other GMs that maybe they're interested in design methodologies and how to build up things, and are always just kind of geeking out about that. So sharing the podcast is a great way to
other GMs like me who geek out reading how other people storytell to improve their storytelling.
But thanks for listening. And we're also on YouTube, Jared.
Smash that like button.
Thank you.
Smash it.
Still working on getting the entire library up there on YouTube. I'm working on it slowly, week to week. They just take longer to upload on that medium. But anyways, for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, guys.
Have a wonderful week, everyone.